So, aliens. What if they came to Earth and actually started living here? Well, there have been a few what-if stories like Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood End with its overlords coming to guide humanity, though they might have ulterior motives. Or District 9, where aliens get stuck here and humanity treat them like garbage while also trying to exploit them for their tech and weaponry. Xcom 2 is a bit of a mix of both, with it leaning more on the Childhood End side of things, though there is going to be a lot of violence towards aliens in this game while stealing their cool technology. The story for Xcom 2 is fairly different from most sequels, where it's taken for granted that the good ending happened. Not in this game, as the setup is, what if we lost the war against the alien invaders in the first game and had to deal with that? Which wouldn't be as bad as you'd think, because it turns out we get really amazing healthcare with all major diseases just gone, also normal poverty or crime, and best of all, really amazing hamburgers. Though don't ask where the burgers came from.
I've never actually had one of these Advent burgers I keep hearing rumors about. No one really seems to be asking the hard questions either, like, when was the last time you even saw a cow?
Oh, and the slight catch is the world is now run by a supremely powerful alien regime called Advent, where your every move is watched and personal freedoms are only slightly undercut. This is all enforced by a large military of mostly human-alien hybrids, with its more powerful units being much more alien than human, most of which inspire fear and terror, and other feelings according to my research. You get to play as the commander from the first game, who's been imprisoned and in stasis for the last 20 years, and after that long nap gets rescued to help lead a small but global resistance force whose secret base is a stolen ship that is used to travel the world to fight back against the aliens, by using strategic and tactical gameplay to free the Earth. Which is a really interesting premise, and I'd say a much better idea than like, what if the aliens invade again, but this time they come from under the sea. The original series of games did try to do that with Terror from the Deep, but it was just a copy of XCOM UFO Defense with more water. I mean, don't get me wrong, that could work if you did more with the idea than just using it as a change in setting. Like if you wanted to, you could up the horror side of things and do something different with the gameplay to make it use the environment, but what Firaxis decided to go with being the bad ending from the first game was a good creative choice, I think. As they would be setting up players as even more of an underdog in this game compared to the first, because this time you're not just fighting against powerful aliens, as they now have near complete control of the Earth, and they've had 20 years to enforce the rule of the planet while also strengthening and improving their alien troops. It's very much a role reversal from the first game, where you're kind of the invaders this time around. So this will be a hard fight for the commander you play as, who wasn't only asleep all that time but being probed and used by the aliens too. What's left of any human resistance is now tiny and has to fight with very limited resources from the shadows. But on the plus side, we aren't on the defense anymore, which means we get to go on the attack and do some probing this time. The game has a darker, more oppressive tone this time around, which is a good indication of what your experience is going to be like. The first game was an uphill battle at the start, but did ease up as you got into it. This time, however, it feels like climbing a mountain with maybe some rocks being thrown at you now and again, you know, for fun. So yeah, the difficulty is higher this time around, and maybe Firaxis turned it up just a tad too much. But it does make the game better overall and help fix some issues from the first game. The reason behind this increase in difficulty was during development they wanted players to be less passive in missions, which was a problem in the previous game where the best approach was to slowly creep across the map. It's a boring way to play, but in a game where you can permanently lose soldiers that take a long time to level up and be effective, it is the safest way to do a mission. So to fix this issue, this time around they added and changed things to both the tactical and strategic layers of the game. On the tactical side, players start concealed in most missions, so now they can sneak up on the enemy, and not trigger them to instantly go on the attack like the last game. But also to keep the pace fast, they added timers for certain missions, so you need to move up quickly and be aggressive or you're going to fail. And on the strategic side, they added the scariest timer in the game, the Avatar Progress Bar.
Commander, the aliens continue to make progress on the Avatar project,
which fills up as you go through the game and will force you into having to go into story missions at a brisk pace or you'd lose the game. All of these changes are good at getting players to stop playing too safe, even though personally I really do not like how stress-inducing that Avatar Progress Bar is at times. On top of those changes, very late in development, Firaxis worried the game might be too easy, which would have made a lot of the new systems in the game feel a little useless. So they decided to rebalance the game to be harder, and if you combine that with the timers, yeah, we were in for a surprise when the game came out. For me, when going through the game for the first time, I wasn't expecting it to be as relentless as it was. I could keep up and get to the end of the game, but going through so many missions where you just scrape by, and then to be greeted after a hard mission by the Avatar Progress Bar just going up without you feeling like you can stop it, was maybe too much. I hadn't felt this much stress in a game since maybe the Labyrinth level from the first Sonic game, when that unholy music kicked in. Anyway, it feels like the game is always tightening the screws on you and never giving you a moment to ease up, even a little. Take for instance your soldiers. You're probably going to feel the need to always bring the best you have on nearly every mission, just to have a better chance to make it through, and the game does let you recruit and train more soldiers to try and get a deeper roster going, in case you lose some on the now more riskier missions. But you're very likely going to have a very leveled up A team with 1 or 2 subs and a fairly underdeveloped B team for most of the game, just to keep making it through. Which is okay, but I get the feeling that Firaxis wants you to use more than one team of soldiers for the whole game, as having a different lineup each mission will force you to try new tactics instead of the ones you get comfortable with. But with how much pressure the game puts on you, it does feel like you can't experiment too much. Though to be fair, the avatar progress bar is basically the devs yelling at you to do story missions, which if you do enough of, does decrease the bar. Just a little. And if you blow up alien facilities on the map, it'll decrease it too, but it never feels like enough so you can catch your breath. It's still a great game to go through multiple times, just maybe more stress inducing than it needed to be. And this is where the expansion War of the Chosen comes in, where Firaxis responded to some of the player feedback about how hard the game was, by adding 3 alien super warriors who can individually show up at random on a normal mission to give you a mini boss to fight when you least expect it. Also, they get stronger as the game progresses, and they each have their own timer which counts down to a mission where they can find Xcom and force a mission on you that if you lose, it's game over. Okay, so you might be thinking, that just sounds like they made the game even harder. Yeah, a little. But it's great, and here's why. They didn't just make the game harder, they added a lot of things to compensate for the added difficulty and to balance out the stress-inducing parts of the base game. So you get your own super soldiers in the form of these new faction resistance fighters who have abilities that are almost game breaking. And the expansion adds more options to reduce the avatar progress bar, which will probably reduce your blood pressure too, while making it easier to recruit and train more soldiers by sending them on side missions to level up. But I'll get into the details in the gameplay section. First I want to chat about the changes to the visuals, which have had a nice upgrade from the first game that was going for a more simple yet stylized action figure look. Now though, the characters have evolved to a more premium collectible kind of look with higher fidelity and a bit more of a darker tone. This does make it more likely that you'll be customizing your soldiers like the first game, with all the fun bits you can add to give them character. I tend to go for a Black Ops kind of vibe with a little hint of character on my soldiers, but you can go pretty wild if you want to. It's also cool to see your soldiers progress through the higher levels of weapons and armors. Though the advanced armor you get late in the game does remind me of the suits from Lawnmower Man. Don't think they were going for that as a reference. But apart from that, the new slightly grim style does take some notes from, let's say, better sources like the movies They Live and Elysium, which suits the general vibes the game was going for. It goes well with levels that have a more oppressive feeling that matches the alien occupation of cities that are almost too clean and well maintained to the point of feeling like something is off. Like it's too good to be true and it's hiding something sinister. It's a perfect setting for a game that's trying to evoke a society under alien autocratic rule, where you'll get a near utopia, but you're gonna have to look the other way for what it's gonna cost you. It's a good contrast to areas outside the cities like the old suburbs that kinda give off an abandoned mall type feel, to areas that reveal what the aliens are actually doing by showing alien plant infestations, which remind me a little of some of Tiberian Sun's maps.
Loud and clear.
And the places where human resistance have set up in mostly rural areas that are a bit of a mess but feel safer and a bit more welcoming than the cities. Except when you find one of the new faceless enemies hiding among them, then it's more just terror. Speaking of which, the enemy designs have also had a cool evolution from the first game and are even more intimidating now. They're great for making you stress out a bit when trying to pick which one you should take out first. These more evolved forms of past enemies are also good at showing what the aliens are taking from humanity and using for their own benefit, while strongly hinting at the motive for why they are here on Earth. From mutants to floaters, they've all borrowed some more human traits, and the snake ladies, which fans of the series have gotten attached to because of their Out of the newer enemies, the ones that really embody this are the Chosen, which as you go through the story find out were once human, but were altered by the elder aliens for their own purposes. To me, the design of the Chosen is both very sinister and smug. They seem to enjoy what they see as their ascension to becoming more powerful beings who serve the alien elders, and generally just see themselves as better than humanity with a large amount of malice towards us. And to be fair, when they make an appearance in a mission, they aren't something you can ignore, as they will make their presence felt. Which I can't say the same for the music in the game, that I have mixed feelings about, as this time around it's more subdued and less action-packed compared to the first game. Even the lineup music when you're suiting up your soldiers is a little more chilled out than before. And the track is pretty good, as it would be hard for me to pick either the old or the new one being best overall, as they're both great at building up hype before sending your soldiers to face alien horrors. And the more low-key music does fit the game, as you're sneaking around and setting up ambushes while fighting a guerrilla war, which when compared to the first game was more your elite squad of humanity's best soldiers going into a desperate fight against an alien invasion. But apart from the lineup music in this game, none of the other tracks felt as impactful during missions for me compared to the first game. Don't get me wrong, it's good music, it just isn't memorable. Luckily in the options you can enable music from the first game to play as well, so I can't really complain. The voice acting on the other hand is better than the first game, where it's gone from uptight work colleagues talking to each other to a more casual but still professional kind of banter. All of the main cutscenes feel like they have a bit more emotion added to them because of this. And the more fun bits of radio chatter going on as you inspect the map and do stuff on the Avenger.
Those damn juicy Advent burgers. I don't know where they get the meat, and frankly, I do not want to know.
It gives you a better feel for their characters. It's even true for the Chosen who are occasionally called to talk trash.
Your efforts have become well known to the people of this world, but I am afraid you bring them nothing but false hope, Commander.
Now you might be wondering if you should try the base game first or skip to the expansion. What I could say after playing both, it's fine if you start with War of the Chosen. While it does make some significant changes, it mostly adds on to what was already there in the main game and refines some mechanics to maybe be less difficult in the mid to late game, while giving you more ways to get a larger roster of soldiers and level them up. Though if you are worried about getting a little overwhelmed with gameplay mechanics, then you can start with the base game. It's juggling less stuff like factions, your soldiers getting fatigued, and the Chosen saying hi in missions. Just beware, the base game is going to keep the pressure on you for most of your playthrough. War of the Chosen does sound harder, but the expansion does give you the tools to take on the extra challenges. Though I will say, if you think you're doing multiple playthroughs, then maybe start with the base game and then do the expansion, as it does make a second time around have more surprises with new things to try out. They did add procedural maps to the game to make each playthrough feel different, but you might get a tiny bit of deja vu on some maps on your second playthrough, even if they aren't technically the same as before. I tend to get that a lot with missions with bridges or highways in them, especially this one, but maybe that's just me. And if you still want more even after that, there's plenty of mods like Long War 2 to keep you going for ages. But back to the expansion. There was one small but odd thing the devs did with War of the Chosen, as they changed the start of the game to be that the Reaper faction found the commander, and they were so close they could have rescued them. So why didn't they? Like, they killed a guard, knocked out a scientist, they even took a peek at the commander and then just left. Wouldn't they put security on higher alert and make it harder for Xcom to get them later? Seems like a needless way to introduce a faction, as they get their own introduction mission later. Anyway. Apart from that, the new Resistance factions fit seamlessly into the game, with skills that allow the Reapers to be super scouts and still do great damage without being discovered, or the Skirmishers' amazing mobility and skill to do damage as a bonus move, or the Templars, who are a little weak at the start but do become a powerhouse of a melee fighter once leveled a little. They all go well with a new way you take on enemies this time around, which is a twist on the previous game, where Xcom gets to start from concealment and surprise the enemy with ambushes, which you're gonna need as that infamous mischance the game is known for is still here. It's more at the start of the game where your soldiers are much lower ranked with worse weapons that have no attachments, but man does it sting when you get a miss when a mission isn't going great, and the game can twist the knife even more with multiple misses in a row, like this. It can feel unfair at times, like the game is lying to you about that 80% hit chance, but us humans are generally really bad with understanding statistics and chance. Like when we see an 80% chance hit, we think that's almost a guaranteed hit, without thinking about that fairly substantial 20% chance to miss. Maybe it would be better to show the chance to miss instead of the chance to hit to get our gamer brains to start thinking, oh, this is maybe not gonna hit, instead of thinking this game is cheating me out of a guaranteed headshot, which it obviously is. Though we also tend to have a negativity bias when remembering misses and forgetting all the hits we get, and when the aliens miss us as well. So yeah, it does feel unbalanced, but isn't really, and it does keep the pressure up in missions. But the game does give you a way not to miss, with grenades. Not only do they always hit, they can sometimes destroy the cover the enemy is hiding behind, which will drastically improve the hit chance for your other soldiers on that turn. On top of that, grenades can also remove armor from enemies, making your follow-up shots do more damage. And if you get into a good position, you can hit multiple enemies with one grenade. I can't overstate how good grenades are.
This weapon is your life.
That's not to say they are overpowered, as at the start of the game they don't do much damage, and depending on your soldier's loadout you'll have a limited amount you can use. They are just a tool you should use to turn battles in your favour, like guaranteeing a kill on low health enemy or making them more exposed for follow-up attacks. Which is a lot of what the game's difficulty is trying to not so gently encourage you to do by getting you to use a mix of strategies and skills. It's just this time around they really want you to play riskier and try some different tactics with the new mechanics the game provides. There are quite a few things the game has to offer to give you a slight advantage in this new setup. Like take for instance the new ultra tall sectoids who look like they stole DNA from some NBA players. They are tougher and more powerful than they used to be, they can use mind control and even make zombies from dead bodies now. But they are super weak to melee damage, which the new ranger class can take advantage of, by getting in close with a sword and slicing them up. Which is dangerous since the ranger will likely be in an exposed position, but is more likely to kill the sectoid than other classes. Which if they manage to do will free up anyone the sectoid mind controlled and make any zombies they made go back to being dead. So you've got to balance out the risk to reward there, which keeps missions interesting and tense. And later on, once you've leveled up the ranger, they do get some great abilities like Untouchable. If they have this ability and get a kill, then the next shot taken against them by the enemy is guaranteed to miss. So sending them forward to take a risky kill becomes an advantage because the enemy will waste a shot on them. But still dangerous because any following shots after that can hit. Again, you need to balance out the risks. There are also some slightly OP abilities like Blade Storm, which if you use tactically is amazing with good positioning against the right type of enemies. All the different classes have skills like this, though it's usually an either or choice with the different skills as they level up. So you can make your soldier very specialized or like a fairly good all-rounder. You'll want a good mix of classes for all the different missions you go on, which can range from capturing VIPs to supply raids and the very time sensitive ones being the hack or destroy devices missions. I didn't like these the first time playing through some of them, but did get used to them as the game did feel like it gave just enough terms to get things done while keeping the pressure on. Though your mileage may vary, and there is a mod to get rid of them if you don't want that stress in your life. Talking about getting rid of stress, the level destructibility in the game can help with that, as you can take advantage of it in certain situations. Like I mentioned before, you can destroy cover, but you can also use it to make an exit where there wasn't one before. Or my preferred use is to do extra damage, or outright kill an enemy by using my favorite utility item, the grenade. Like if an enemy is in a building on the second floor or higher, you can blow them up while destroying the floor beneath them, which will cause them to take fall damage on top of the damage inflicted by the grenade. This can also outright kill high health turrets with one grenade if they are on a floor above you. It's fun using all these tricks to turn fights in your favour. They all help with the main gameplay loop of the tactical and strategic layers feeding into each other, with you sending out soldiers on missions where you hope they survive, which will level them up to get new abilities in addition to the loot and resources they get on those missions. That you'll invest back into your base to build new facilities that will help research better weapons and armor, and unlock bonuses, make new gadgets and equipment which will give your soldiers a better chance to survive their next PTSD experience.
Help! Help! Someone help!
And eventually make progress towards your main aim of overthrowing the alien regime. The tricky part is where to focus those limited resources of time, money and intel. Like, should you upgrade your comms to contact more regions so you get more money each month and gain access to important target sites? That can reduce the unending terror that is the Avatar progress bar, or should you hold off on that for a while to build that new armor you just finished researching? Which will make your soldiers less likely to die since the last few missions have been cutting it close. Oh, but before you get a chance to do that, the aliens hit one of your allies. So they are calling for help right now and you can't wait on that nice new armor to finish being made, and if you don't help, you're gonna lose resources. Oh, and innocent people are gonna die.
No!
It's all stress-inducing fun. So you might not always be 100% ready for missions, and look, if a mission is going bad, there's nothing wrong with calling an early extraction and getting out of a bad situation. You'll fail the mission of course and lose some resources, and worst of all might make your Xcom dad disappointed in you.
It is unfortunate, Commander, that your recent efforts have proven to be so mediocre.
Which yeah, sucks, but at least you didn't wipe the entire squad trying to fix a hopeless situation. Also, it does mean you're going to be playing chicken with that progress bar a lot later in the game. And I haven't even mentioned the dark events, which is another lovely bit of stress. These events are the aliens' attempts to counter Xcom in a bunch of ways, from adding more enemies to missions, to making your recruits cost double, or worst of all, adding progress to the Avatar project bar. You can counter these with guerrilla ops, but there will be multiple dark events happening all at once, so you can only counter one at a time, and will have to let the rest happen, so pick your poison. The higher tension thanks to all these mechanics and increased difficulty in the game, I don't think is completely bad, as it does make it feel like you're making important decisions even if it's just base building, and even more so when making choices during combat. You're always going to have that thought in the back of your head, if I make a bad choice here, is it going to bite me later down the line? And the game keeps the pressure on. Because as you go through the game, your soldiers do get stronger, which gives you more options in fights. But it feels like you're just keeping up with the aliens who not only introduce new types of enemies, they'll also get more armor and bigger health bars. It keeps the game challenging through the whole playthrough, which is better than the first game, but it does maybe take it a little too far. Like the previous game, while also having its challenges, did start to get easier towards the mid to late game. once you figured out it was safer to play more carefully, and especially once you started getting in the habit of doing that boring Overwatch creeping. Which isn't entirely the player's fault. The systems in the games lead you to play like that and don't give you any incentive to play riskier, which would be more fun to play. The problem with vanilla Xcom 2 is it's mostly got the right idea how to get players to take more chances, but it's focusing on punishing players rather than rewarding players for playing riskier. Combine that with the pacing of the gameplay, which has a laser focus on keeping the pressure on the whole time, and it's maybe going to be a little too much.
Commander, the aliens continue to make progress.
Some players are into that, but also a lot don't want to have constant anxiety on every mission. You know those storytelling charts that show how to use tension in a story? To me, Xcom feels like a straight line up that barely gives you a chance to breathe. Instead, it might have been a little bit better to ease off the accelerator while still generally going up, just to take the edge off. This is where War of the Chosen comes in. It mostly fixes these issues while introducing one or two of its own, but generally has a much better feel to me. It gives you more options to take some of the pressure off in-game while being more rewarding to riskier but good tactics, which I think makes for a better pace. The new faction classes give you more choices in combat earlier in the game, and they've added ability points, which is a separate way to give your soldiers new skills apart from just leveling them up. You'll earn these ability points by playing tactically, like flanking enemies to shoot them or using height to your advantage when taking shots, etc. And using these ability points, you can make your soldiers have skills they would not normally have, which can get them close to being as powerful as the new faction soldiers you get. But to balance out all these new goodies, you're going to have to deal with the Chosen, who will appear in missions when you least want them to, and they'll get stronger as the game goes on. Also, if you don't deal with them, they will eventually make a move to attack your ship, which if you lose that mission is game over. On top of that, there are also zombies in some missions now. It's fine though, they give you a headshot mechanic that gives you a bonus move if you kill a zombie, which helps a lot to deal with the hordes they'll throw at you, but it's one more thing to worry about with all the other problems you might have to deal with on the map. They also added a fatigue system where your soldiers will get tired the more missions they do in a row without getting some time to rest. That if you ignore will make them not follow orders and long term will give them negative traits. It's a good addition to the game as it pushes you to have a bigger roster of soldiers to call on instead of always using your A team, which forces you to mix up your tactics. Though to compensate you for having to give your soldiers more time off, the game does give you another way to level up soldiers on the side, being faction resistance missions, which apart from giving your soldiers experience can give you some nice bonuses and rewards like reducing the avatar progress bar. But there is a chance those missions can be ambushed, and if that happens, you'll need to take control of that small squad of soldiers in order to try and save them. Which can be a little tricky since you probably send low level soldiers and the squad size is much smaller than normal. Though the risk of sending out my rookies to die to reduce the avatar progress bar is one I'm willing to make though. All these changes are great and keep the game challenging, though there is a slight problem with the Chosen fights when you get to the late game. Before I continue, there are going to be some slight spoilers for the Chosen boss fights, which if you want to experience for yourself, then skip to here. When I got around to facing the Chosen in their lairs, the first one, the Assassin, was quite hard to take down, and during the fight I had to use every trick I could think of to win, since I had no idea what to expect. This was a tough but good intense fight. The second Chosen I fought, the Warlock, while still hard, was easier considering I had an idea what was going to be happening. Since apart from the different Chosen abilities I had to deal with, the layout and structure of the fight is pretty much the same. So I could prepare for that and deal with it. Still fun but getting predictable. And the last Chosen, the Hunter, well, since I had high level soldiers and knew how the fight was going to go, while being able to use powerful weapons I'd won from previous Chosen fights, I basically bullied him for that last fight. Now, it's not that I want Firaxis to make the fight harder, because that feels like a monkey paw wish waiting to happen if I did, considering what they did with the base game. Rather just throw in a few curveballs, like maybe since it's the last Chosen encounter, have the Elders empower them with a new ability during the fight, but as a trade-off it also gives them a new weakness, or maybe just change the Chosen base in a way that throws me off guard. Anything just to keep it interesting, because after going through a similar fight twice before this, it really felt like a recycled boss fight. The rest of the gameplay in War of the Chosen keeps the difficulty and the fun but tense risk-taking of the base game, and feels to me like the pace isn't as intense throughout most of the game. The missions do feel easier in the late game because of all the extra abilities and the faction bonuses while being able to reduce that avatar progress bar, and the Chosen once defeated not showing up in missions anymore. But if you make mistakes you will still get punished though. So overall great gameplay, with a few sticking points here and there, but Firaxis I think have sorted out that Overwatch problem from the last game. Okay, with that done, what's the story like? Well, generally the story beats have a very similar setup to the previous game, where you go on plot-specific missions to find out what the aliens are up to, which leads to you needing to build or research something at your base to fight back and progress the story. Rinse and repeat. So I'm not going to do my usual rundown of the story, just go over the changes and what I liked and what maybe I have mixed feelings on. One of the few big changes being that you're resistance fighters who are trying to free the planet instead of stopping an invasion. The aliens this time around are well established in society and have had propaganda going for decades about how nothing sinister is going on.
What you are seeing are classified reports of missing civilians from across the world. Their numbers are growing.
While acting like they're helping humanity by fixing all of its major problems, so most of the population is okay with them being in charge. It's a role reversal from the last game where now you're the one acting in the shadows this time, with the alien government Advent having to react to you blowing up stuff around the world. The other significant change being that they've made your player character the commander have an even bigger role in the story. Like after Xcom rescues you from an alien tube full with some kind of what I assume is gamer energy drink, we find out the alien stuck a powerful chip in your head and had you play war games for 20 years, which wasn't just for fun. As the chip was linked to a network where alien officers who also had chips in their head could use the tactical data you were playing out in your super long game dream session to improve their own tactics, which was used to put down any resistance the aliens had to deal with during their occupation. So not only did you lose the war when the aliens invaded, but you are also technically the reason the aliens have been so successful at stopping any human resistance for the last 20 years. This is very much the dark timeline. But now after being freed, you can turn the tide with your big brain tactical skills. Which is a bit of a shift from before where yeah, you were in charge but your soldiers were kind of the stars of the show, who would get stronger thanks to your tactical and strategic skills and a bit of luck on the battlefield, with even one of them going on to be the hero who saves the world. Well, in the good ending timeline from the previous game, at least. This time though, the world seems to revolve around the commander being a bit of a chosen one. It's fine, though I do miss the potential of one of your rank and file soldiers who, despite the odds against them, become the hero of the story. I mean, you will still get attached to soldiers and have little stories form around them as you go through the game. Though with the War of the Chosen expansion, the specialized faction soldiers you get do outshine the rest of your lineup. The best analogy I can think to describe it is the mid-90s Chicago Bulls basketball team. Yeah, you've got great players like Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen on the team, but Michael Jordan is going to be the star of the show most of the time. The faction soldiers have a lot going for them over your regulars, even after you level them up to Colonel. And it's not just their abilities, but they do get more voice acting and from well-known actors as well, which does give them more personality compared to the rest of the soldiers. This isn't a bad thing, as I like the more fleshed out characters, and I think they are a good addition, as it gives the game a chance to tell interesting stories around more defined characters with unique skills. I'm just a little worried that Firaxis start leaning too hard in this direction for future games, and try and make all your soldiers like that, without letting players make their own stories around soldiers as they play. I like that regular soldiers you recruit during the game get shaped by your choices and a bit of randomness that happens on missions. It makes you feel connected to them in a way that not many tactical games can do. Keeping it as a mix of both of these more defined soldiers and regular grunts would be good going forward, but we'll see what happens. I could be wrong. Something else I liked were the callbacks in the story to characters from the first game, with missions you can do to find out what they got up to after the alien invasion. Like, remember Dr. Valen, who was a little too good at interrogating alien captives?
Apparently my predecessor was something of a brute when it came to handling the interrogation and autopsy of alien subjects. From what I've heard, she was keen to get her hands dirty.
During the first game, it's hinted a bit she was being kept in check from going too far in her experiments by the commander. And with them gone for 20 years, she did go a little bit mad scientist and maybe made some super powerful aliens she could experiment on. Oops. Obviously, they escape, and now you need to deal with them sometimes appearing in missions. To me, they are way scarier than the Chosen, as not only are they powerful with big health bars, they move whenever you take an action with any of your soldiers, like they don't wait for your turn to end. So have fun with those. I recommend keeping a frost bomb on hand to help deal with them moving around so much though.
This weapon is your life.
But getting back to the Chosen, I generally like the bits of personality they've given to them. The assassin, while really wanting to kill your soldiers, does admire your resolve and abilities despite the odds.
There is no shame in admitting my admiration for your resolve in the face of insurmountable odds. I was born of battle, of a desire to face my enemies in combat and surrender to no one. In you, I see a shadow of my own creation.
I get some strong Lady Klingon vibes from her. And the Warlock, who likes to project power, is very committed to the alien cause, and just sees himself as better than you.
For you are the true abominations. Microbes that think themselves greater than the gods.
Target Target neutralized.
The hunter, well, is just, I don't know, rebellious, edgy.
The Elders don't make a habit of looking for me. We haven't been on the best of terms since they found I had been hunting some of their pets in my spare time.
He's voiced by Nolan North, so that's something, I guess. All of the Chosen do, however, share the view, though, that the Commander was one of them and has gone astray and needs to return to the fold. They'll even try gaslighting you to say they're here to help humanity, to try and convince you to come back. Sure, that's gonna work.
The Elders could have destroyed your race with but a single command, yet they rebuilt your world, offered you hope. Your actions this day are an affront to their generosity.
Though I do worry about this very vague greater threat they keep hinting about coming in the future.
The Elders must not fail. Humanity delays their own salvation. You must submit now before the true enemy appears.
Which I'm gonna need to go into spoilers for the story to talk about it, so if you don't want those, then skip to here.
Surprise, motherfucker.
You thought I wasn't gonna do a story recap.
I lied.
I do need to do a small one to talk about the ending, so it's only a tiny fib. Okay, so after Xcom go on a few missions to find a way to defeat Advent, they eventually figure out that the elder aliens controlling the Advent government are slowly dying, even though they are extremely powerful psychics and have access to super advanced tech. They have figured a way around this problem though. You see, all these free health clinics around the world are actually being used to abduct and harvest humans for genetic material to make super bodies for them, called avatars, which if they manage to perfect will make them unstoppable. But Xcom manages to steal one of these avatar bodies and plan to use it to gain access to the secret alien HQ, which is deep under the ocean and only accessible by a psychic portal. Now the only person able to handle the mental strain of controlling the avatar body is you, the commander, since you were able to handle that 20-year-long gaming session. So the final mission is you and your borrowed Super Saiyan body with your best soldiers taking out the elders in theirs. I'll admit the setup is a cool bit of personal payback for the commander after being abducted and probed by the aliens for decades.
Oh, boys! I'm back!
Though as you eventually fight the elders, they keep saying that they're actually trying to make humanity and themselves stronger to fight a bigger threat that's coming, and that you should join them, which is a nice offer and all, but I think the mass processing of humanity into genetic soup is a bit of a deal breaker, so we end up killing all the elder avatars. And this causes their base to start falling apart, with the commander's avatar staying behind to finish off what's left of the elders. Even at this point when they're about to be beaten, they still keep warning about this threat that's coming.
Are not ready. We must not fail.
The commander does a self-sacrifice thing with the avatar body, but luckily the commander doesn't die and wakes up in their own body, while the rest of humanity rises up against what's left of the alien forces to free the world. Though as the game ends, we get a cutscene of what's left of the alien HQ and what might be a portal or dangerous energy of some kind rising from
under the sea.
This does kind of remind me of Pacific Rim. I just hope they take inspiration from the first movie and not the second one.
How was your day?
It's a mostly satisfying ending that sets up an intriguing possible sequel. I think they can pull it off as long as they don't make the same mistakes Xcom Terror from the Deep made, which was just to change the setting while mostly copying and pasting things. Firaxis have shown they are willing to experiment with the Xcom formula in their versions of the game to keep things fresh, while still keeping the core gameplay and story solid. So I am very interested to see what they do, as they have built up this big mystery threat over the past two mainline games. One thing I worry about is they maybe focus too much on making the commander the hero of the next story, which to be fair was done in an okay way in this game, as who doesn't like to be the one who saves the day. But I really liked that in the first game one of your soldiers could be the hero, which gave a different kind of feeling of victory, like maybe being a proud parent. So I am hopeful Firaxis can take the story in an interesting direction with this new threat that's coming from
under the sea.
This game, while maybe pushing the difficulty aspect a bit too much when it first released, is in a good state after it did some gameplay tweaks in its expansion. It's a great game that keeps what was good about the previous XCOM while trying to get rid of the problems of Overwatch creep and us players playing too safe. There are some minor issues of balance that show up in the War of the Chosen expansion, but the state of the game is in a better place than the first one. And hopefully Firaxis don't get worried about the difficulty and start messing with it again. It's fine, don't touch it. Please. I also like that they took the story in a different direction than most would have, and I hope they keep doing interesting things with it. I can definitely recommend you pick this game up and give it a try. It usually goes on sale fairly often with all its DLCs and the expansion at a reasonable price. Also, now with Firaxis done with their Marvel game, maybe we'll get another XCOM in the near future. Cross your fingers. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then maybe press that like button or maybe consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Kill.
I know where you are.
Kill them all.